We have another act to come up now, which is another one of public consideration of a general plan amendment, rezone, development plan, and tentative subdivision map to facilitate the development of the Yuba Crossings project, a mixed-use complex on Franklin Road north of Winco Shopping Center, that open area that gets weeds in it and stuff. This is the preliminary plans right here in paper. When they actually start getting in here, you know, as a construction guy, they get real thick on construction. But Arnaldo, go at it.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the audience loves me so much, I'm back for an encore. So the item this evening before you, as the Mayor stated, is for the Yuba City is for the Yuba Crossings project. So this project, it's been a long project in the making. I've been directly working with the applicant, their architect, their representatives, the traffic engineer. I think I was here maybe 2 months, so I'm going on about 22 months of working on this project with the applicant. We've seen a lot of different conversions of the project come before us, and I'd like to think it was a very iterative process, and it shows great collaboration by both the applicant and city staff. So the applicant itself, or the project itself, it's a general plan amendment, a subdivision map to subdivide the property to sell it. It's a rezone application, and it's a development plan. But before I start jumping into what this project does, just in way of background, a couple of things about this site. It's probably on the radar of a couple of the city council members, is that in 2012, there was an application that came before the city council, and initially this property was actually planned and zoned for residential uses. They converted it to commercial. Now, part of the plan is to take more than half of it back to its original designation of residential. So the project that was approved back in 2013, should this project be approved, would supersede the original approval, so the original approval would die. A couple of things, just for the benefit of the city council and the audience this evening. This is a photo that was taken roughly 2 weeks ago of the site. This is directly across the street from Winco, so when you pull up to the signal light when you're going northbound outside of Winco, the house that was demolished was actually demolished as part of this project. The owner also owns the house, and unfortunately, it's right off the photograph immediately to the left of that, and that house would also be demolished as part of this plan. The site itself has been fenced off for a couple of years now, or for roughly 2 years, and there are approximately 7 homes that were demolished in November of 2015 at the request of the city as part of this project, and that's where some of those homes were at. So the project itself, so this photo still shows the homes, these right here, but obviously this Google aerial photo is a little dated because those homes were demolished, as was this one right here a couple of weeks ago, or roughly 2 months or so ago. So the project itself, again, is 8.7 acres and is currently planned for commercial uses. So this proposal is a request to amend roughly 6 acres of the overall 8.7 acre site, 5.9 acres to be exact. The northern portion of it from the commercial to the low density. That would facilitate, or that would allow the council to approve the rezone. And that's the site, so that would be the new designation. The northernmost 2/3 of it would go from the community commercial to the low density commercial. The zoning is currently, which is on the left, is C2. The proposed zoning, which is on the right, the northern portion of it, of course, being single family, which is R1. Almost every subdivision in the city of Yuba City, if it has a single family home, it's zoned R1. If it has an apartment complex, it's zoned R3. The southern portion of it would be C2X. The reason for the X is that's a development plan overlay. And in terms of approving the project that the applicant's proposing, the X overlay is required. Not every piece of property in the city has an X overlay. This would be the 25th X overlay in the city out of all the parcels that we have. And that just highlights the parcel itself. The city does have a parcel proximate to this area, or immediately adjacent to this area. And the reason that the city had purchased this property and demolished a home a number of years ago was for the completion of OG Way. OG Way is identified as a street in the city's circulation element, and it would eventually go from the existing shopping center, which again at the Winco being the southern end, and it would go all the way to Bridge Road. However, before it gets to Bridge Road, it would actually traverse Weiler, which is on the south side of the Dollar General and the Nissan dealership, which are right to the north. As part of this project, that road would not continue. However, I'll get into a discussion shortly here. They would be improving the southernmost 160 lineal feet, and that would allow people to access this site, which they're proposing for development, directly from the intersection. So people at the intersection would be able to go northbound to access the site. So in terms of OG Way, at the request of the Planning Commission, and staff supports this, OG Way would be developed as part of phase 1 of this project. This project is proposed in 2 phases, which I'll discuss in a later slide. So access could be, so there would be 2 points of access. One of them would be from a drive approach around the middle of the parcel, and then OG Way. In terms of development impact fees, every new project in the city is required to pay development impact fees for road improvements. The total project cost for the 89 units that are proposed here, approximately 15,000 square feet of retail space, would be roughly $459,000. The estimate to improve OG Way is roughly $360,000. So if the applicant were to move forward on the project, they would install OG Way. They would obviously have a credit. So when they come in for their plans, they would obviously get a credit of $360,000. The remaining funds or balance of that, the applicant would be paying as development occurs. And the cost itself, the $458,000 does not include the acquisition of the 2 homes. Of course, one of the homes already being demolished. So the 53 single-family homes that we discussed, again, they're on the northern piece of the property. They're also proposing 2 tot lots and small open space areas, which are largely going to be bioswales. So the 2 lots would be right here. Roughly 5,000 square feet, I believe, is the one on the west side. The one on the east side slightly smaller. That would be used, and it would be maintained by the homeowners association. So these 53 homes would participate in the homeowner association, and they would be responsible for maintaining those tot lots. So access again would occur from Franklin Road, right around the middle of the parcel. There's not a drive approach there now, but they would be installing one. They would also have access directly from the intersection or from the signal light going northbound on OG. And then at the end of Keene Avenue or Keene Road, there would be an emergency access gate there. It would be gated, and that again would only be used for emergency purposes. And so that would not be an access road that anyone can come in and out of. The subdivision itself would not be gated, with the exception of that access road. So phase 2 would be the southern half. So the southern half includes 36 units and approximately 15,000 square feet of retail space. The northern half of the southern half includes 10 live-work units, and those live-work units are 3 stories. The ground floor would be a work unit where the upper 2 floors would be the tenants live. Those are commonly found in fairly large cities, and they're commonly used by either studios, hairdressers, makeup artists, so they can be used for an array of actual uses. The 2 buildings, which are the 2 southernmost buildings, there would be the ground floor would be for retail. The upper 2 floors would be for residences. Those would be townhouse styles units, and there would be 26 total. So while the living arrangements themselves are not commonly found in Yuba City, they do provide housing for a large segment of our population that, quite frankly, either doesn't want to live in a traditional home or they can't afford a traditional home, and they want something that's slightly more urban, or they want smaller yards, or quite frankly, simply a different lifestyle, which our housing element encourages. So the 53 units, and I'm not going to go into great detail, but they are proposing 0 lot lines. So that does not mean that the homes would be touching each other. What that implies is that one of the sides of the building would simply be touching the property line, and that just simply allows greater flexibility in the design. They would be two-story. They would be providing front yards of 20 feet, which here in Yuba City, that's extremely common. Actually, every single-family home in the city has 20 feet from the back of your sidewalk to the front of your garage, if not more. They're proposing tandem parking. There would be on-street parking, and they would also be providing decorative parkway streets with planter strips and decorative walls. Here's a couple of elevations of the single-family homes. They do have a rather contemporary appearance. They largely resemble row-type housing, which is commonly found. For example, in West Sacramento, this type of housing is pretty common. It's currently under construction. And here's just a couple of different elevations that staff has been partnering with the applicant to go over. The live-work units. Again, there's a total of 10 live-work units. They're 3 stories. There would be 20 spaces dedicated to these units. And actually, the last bullet point there is an error because access would be provided. Well, no, it would be provided from Franklin Road just via the actual drive approach or the signalized intersection. Very comparable to the single-family homes. However, this has slightly more of a modern look with some different building materials, including corrugated metal. But that's not corrugated metal commonly found to build, say, shops. It has a very urban look to it, and it's commonly used in urban areas. So the mixed-use part of it, again, this would be along Franklin Road, 26 apartments, slightly more than 15,000 square feet of retail space. That retail space can be used for offices or traditional retail space in terms of walk-up businesses, and 90 parking spaces would be provided. So that would be the look along Franklin Road. In the conditions of approval, there are a handful of conditions that the applicant's amenable to that would require some minor modifications. For example, covering the exposed staircases, which were on some of the elevations. However, for the most part, in terms of materials, colors, and the massing of the buildings, this is what it would look like. Again, just a couple of different views of it. This is obviously looking from the top. Has a very urban look. Now we're going to get into some of the more details. So, as part of any new development, the city a number of years ago began to impose community facility district conditions, which Darren's going to be discussing this evening. The applicant is amenable to it. So what that means, that as part of the CFD, which is a services CFD, which would go to help fund future costs for fire, police services, to major street improvements, the applicant is open to implementing the CFD, which would not exceed $425 per year per unit. Those dollars would be collected during the property tax collection period, which would be placed in a pool. Those dollars would be then diverted to the city, and then the city would allocate those funds. There will also be a homeowner association for the maintenance of the private street, including the 2 tot lots that are in there, the block walls, and then the sewer system. The water system itself would be a public water system, just like all the other homes here in Yuba City have. However, the sewer system itself would be private. So with that being said, staff prepared an environmental assessment pursuant to the CEQA guidelines. We are recommending that the council adopt a mitigated negative declaration, which we distributed to both local agencies, including the Native American tribes, pursuant to CEQA. A traffic impact analysis was prepared by Ken Anderson. That traffic impact analysis concluded that no significant impacts would be created on either Franklin Road or any of the surrounding major roadways. We are also recommending that the council adopt a resolution to make necessary findings outlined in the staff report to approve the general plan amendment, the development plan, and the subdivision map. And we're also introducing the ordinance this evening, and we are requesting that the council waive the first reading. We will then come back to the city council at your next regularly scheduled meeting for the second reading of the ordinance for the rezone application. So that concludes staff's presentation, and staff's prepared to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the council at this point? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to open it to the public for any comments regarding it, supporting it, opposing it, any way. Seeing none, bringing it back to the council for any final comments or action to be taken. I know this is something that I see, and many of us probably see these types of developments in other cities, and actually much more robust than actually this one is a much larger size. I've seen some that are, 3 and 4 and 5 blocks in size, just massive, and have provided, I guess small communities. Seniors will move into them, people that don't want big yards, providing a different lifestyle. I have a big yard. I may someday want to get down to just, hey, that's it, I'm done, no more yard, just a minimal on that. And this provides some new units for that. I mean, it could. So something new and 21st century style things. That I'm looking for action for B, C, D, and E, and F.
Through the mayor.
Waiving the
Sorry.
first reading.
Through the mayor. Staff's recommendation of B, C, D, and F, waiving the first reading. Make a motion.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, unanimous vote. We got another, I guess, the 18th of next month we'll be back and hopefully and have a second reading.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for your performance. You've done quite well this year. That's great. On this one. Okay, the second mass exodus. You can see that there's a lot of interest in some of these things. A few years of efforts and planning and finally finding out what hopefully is best for our community takes time sometimes.